Scarlett's hands froze
Sir,
mid-polish
please
on the
calm
crystal
down.
wine glass when she heard the
It
voice
was an
behind her.
accident.
Sharp, cutting,
I swear.
deliberately loud enough for everyone in the private dining room to hear. Did they really send her to serve us tonight? I specifically requested someone presentable. The room fell silent. Every server, every bodyguard, every person in the lavish restaurant held their breath. Scarlett felt the familiar burn of humiliation crawl up her neck, but she kept her eyes down, kept polishing the glass. She'd learned long ago that responding only made things worse. "Penelope, please," someone tried to interject. "No, I'm serious. Look at that hair. Those clothes. This is the Bellecourt, for God's sake. We have standards." Penelope Wright's laughter was like breaking glass. "Honestly, I'm not even sure she knows which fork is which." Scarlett's reflection stared back at her from the gleaming glass, her natural curls pulled into a tight bun, her dark skin, her plain uniform. She'd worked double shifts for 3 days straight. Her feet ached. Her daughter needed medicine. She couldn't afford to lose this job, but then she felt it. A presence behind her that made the entire room shift, the kind of silence that came before thunder. "What?" a male voice said, quiet as death and twice as final. "Did you just say?" Scarlett turned slowly, and her heart stopped. Nicholas Bennett stood 5 feet away, and every person in the room had gone statue still. The most powerful man in the city, the man whose empire stretched from legitimate hotels to things whispered about in dark corners, the man whose private dining room she'd been assigned to prepare. And he was looking at Penelope Wright, like she'd just signed her own death warrant. If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this moment that changed everything, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one. Now let's see how a single moment of cruelty became the beginning of something no one could have predicted. 3 weeks earlier, Scarlett Hayes had never heard of Nicholas Bennett. She knew the Bellecourt restaurant existed. Everyone in the city did. But it existed in a world so far removed from hers that it might as well have been on another planet. Her world was the basement apartment in Southside where the heating barely worked. It was her 4-year-old daughter Lily's cough that wouldn't go away. It was the $73 left in her bank account and the pharmacy bill that cost $95. "Mummy, is Miss Janet coming tonight?" Lily asked from the worn couch, her small voice raspy. "Yes, baby." Scarlett kissed her daughter's forehead, checking for fever again, still warm. "And you be good for her, okay? Mummy has to work the late shift." "3 jobs?" Lily's big brown eyes looked up at her with that devastating childhood wisdom that broke Scarlett's heart daily. "2 tonight." Scarlett managed to smile. "But that means pancakes this weekend. The good ones with chocolate chips." She left before her daughter could see the tears. The bus ride to the Bellecourt took 45 minutes, and Scarlett spent every second of it calculating. If she picked up the weekend shift at the diner, if she skipped lunch this week, if the landlord could wait just 3 more days. The Bellecourt rose before her like a glass and steel palace. Scarlett used the service entrance, showing her brand new employee badge to security. She'd been shocked when they called her back after the interview. The pay was triple what she made cleaning offices, and they offered health insurance after 90 days. 90 days. Lily could see a real doctor in 90 days. "You're the new girl?" A woman in an impeccable server's uniform looked her up and down. "They put you on prep duty tonight, private dining room. And listen," she leaned closer, "you do not want to mess this up. We don't know who booked it, but they reserved the entire floor. That means someone important, someone powerful. You keep your head down, do your job perfectly, and maybe you'll still have this job tomorrow." Scarlett nodded, her stomach tight with anxiety. The private dining room was like something from a movie, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, a table that could seat 20, each place setting worth more than her monthly rent, crystal that caught the light like trapped stars. Scarlett had been polishing that crystal for 2 hours when she heard the voices approaching. "Absolutely unacceptable that they sent that email to my attorney." The door opened. Scarlett kept her eyes down, kept working. She saw expensive shoes first, then designer dresses and tailored suits. The group swept in like they owned not just the room, but the air itself. "Champagne," someone ordered. "The 2008 Cristal." Scarlett moved carefully to the wine storage, her hands steady despite her nerves. She'd studied the restaurant's wine list until she had it memorized. She couldn't afford mistakes. She was returning with the bottle when she heard it. "Oh God, They let the help use the same entrance as guests now. How democratic. Scarlett didn't look up. She focused on the champagne bottle, on the ice bucket, on anything but the blonde woman whose voice dripped with disdain. Penelope, honestly, another woman started. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. This is the Bella Court. We expect a certain aesthetic. Penelope Wright examined her manicure. Not whatever this is supposed to be. Scarlett felt every eye in the room turn to her. Her face burned, but she kept her expression neutral, kept moving. The sommelier rescued her, taking the champagne and dismissing her with a subtle nod. She retreated to the prep area, her hands shaking now that no one could see them. It wasn't the first time, it wouldn't be the last. She just had to endure. But as she stood there, trying to steady her breathing, trying to remember Lily's face and why she was doing this, the door opened again, and everything changed. Nicholas Bennett didn't walk into rooms. He dominated them. Scarlett felt the shift in atmosphere before she even looked up. When she did, her breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His suit probably cost more than her car, but it was his face that held her frozen. Sharp features, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes so intensely dark they seemed to see straight through her. Those eyes met hers across the prep area, and for one impossible moment, the chaos of the restaurant, the humiliation, the exhaustion, all of it fell away. Then someone called his name and he was gone, moving into the private dining room where laughter and conversation swelled. Scarlett released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her supervisor appeared, handing her a tray of polished wine glasses. "Take these in, and Scarlett?" The woman's expression was almost sympathetic. "Whatever happens in there, just smile and stay quiet. Some people, they like to feel superior. Let them." Scarlett took the tray, squared her shoulders, and walked back into the lion's den. She didn't know that Nicholas Bennett had paused mid-conversation, his attention caught by a woman with exhausted eyes and a spine of steel. She didn't know that he'd already noticed the way his business associate's wife had spoken to her, or that he was the kind of man who noticed everything. And she certainly didn't know that in 3 weeks, Penelope Wright's cruelty would become the catalyst for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of both their worlds. The dinner service was a masterclass in endurance. Scarlett moved between courses with practiced efficiency, her face a mask of professional courtesy, even as Penelope's comments continued like poison dripped in wine. "I'm surprised they haven't upgraded to a more modern service staff. You know, people who actually fit the ambience." "Penelope, that's enough," a man said uncomfortably. "Oh, relax, Richard. She can't even hear us. Can you, dear?" Penelope's smile was vicious. Scarlett could hear every word, but she'd learned to become invisible, to let insults slide off like water. She served the next course, collected empty plates, stayed silent. What she didn't see was Nicholas Bennett's hand tightening on his wine glass with each comment, his jaw clenched. His eyes tracked every movement, every flinch Scarlett almost managed to hide. He'd built his empire by reading people, by seeing what others missed, and what he saw in the exhausted server with careful hands and wounded dignity made something protective and dangerous unfurl in his chest. "Bennett, you're quiet tonight," someone noted. Nicholas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just observing." When Scarlett returned to clear the table before dessert, she finally allowed herself one moment of weakness. Her feet ached so badly she could barely stand. She swayed slightly, catching herself on the back of a chair. "Careful," Penelope's voice cut through the room. "We can't have the help collapsing on the carpet. It's imported Persian." Laughter followed. Scarlett's face burned with humiliation. "That's it." Nicholas stood abruptly, his chair scraping back with enough force to silence the room. "Penelope, a word. Now." The temperature in the room plummeted. Penelope's smile faltered. "Nicholas, I was just... now." He strode from the room, and after a moment's hesitation, Penelope followed. Through the closed door, voices rose, his deadly quiet, hers increasingly shrill and defensive. Scarlett stood frozen, still holding a stack of plates, unsure whether to stay or leave. The other guests suddenly found their phones fascinating. When Nicholas returned 5 minutes later, Penelope wasn't with him. His expression was carved from ice. "Someone find the manager, immediately." The supervisor appeared within seconds, her face pale. "Mr. Bennett? Is everything—" "That server." He pointed at Scarlett, and her heart stopped. She's been working this entire event alone when protocol requires at least 3 staff for a party this size. Why? We had 2 call-outs tonight, sir, and I don't want excuses. I want it fixed. Get her assistance now and make sure she gets a break. A real one. With food. His eyes swept the room. And if anyone has a problem with the quality of service tonight, they can take it up with me directly. Silence. Absolute silence. Nicholas's gaze found Scarlett's, and for a moment she saw something unexpected. Concern, anger on her behalf, and something else she couldn't name. "My apologies," he said directly to her, and the formal words somehow felt personal. "For the disrespect you've endured tonight. It won't happen again." Then he turned to his guests. "Penelope has decided to leave early. The rest of you are welcome to stay. But I recommend we all remember that every person in this building deserves respect, regardless of their position. The measure of character isn't what you have. It's how you treat those who have less." Scarlett's eyes stung with sudden tears. In 27 years, no one with power had ever defended her. No one had ever looked at her and seen someone worth protecting. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. True to his word, 2 more servers appeared to help. Someone brought her a plate of food and insisted she take 15 minutes. When she returned, the party was winding down, but the atmosphere had completely shifted. As guests departed, Scarlett was cleaning the last of the crystal when Nicholas appeared beside her. Up close, he was even more devastating and terrifying. She knew who he was now. The staff had been whispering all night. Nicholas Bennett, business mogul, rumored connections to organized crime, a man who controlled half the city. "You didn't have to do that," she heard herself say, then immediately regretted it. But he smiled, a real smile that softened the dangerous edges. "Yes, I did." He paused. "What's your name?" "Scarlett. Scarlett Hayes." "Scarlett." He said it like he was testing how it felt. "You have a daughter?" Her head snapped up, fear flooding her. How did he... He gestured to her phone, visible in her apron pocket. The screen showed Lily's photo as her wallpaper. "I notice things. She's 4, and she's everything." The words came out defensive. "Good." His expression gentled. "That's exactly how it should be. How's her cough?" Scarlett froze. He couldn't have heard that from across the room during the chaos earlier, but somehow he had. "She needs to see a doctor, but She stopped, uncertain why she was telling this powerful stranger anything. Nicholas pulled out a business card, but instead of handing it to her, he wrote something on the back. "This is my personal physician. Take your daughter to see him tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. Everything will be taken care of." "I can't." "You can, and you will." His tone left no room for argument, but his eyes held only kindness. "Your daughter deserves proper medical care, and you deserve to not carry that weight alone." He placed the card on the counter between them, and Scarlett noticed his hands, strong, capable, with scars that spoke of a harder past than his expensive suit suggested. "Why are you helping me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Nicholas was quiet for a moment, studying her with those impossibly dark eyes. "Because someone should. Because you work 3 jobs and still put your daughter's needs before your own. Because tonight you held your head high even when someone tried to tear you down." He leaned slightly closer, and Scarlett's breath caught. "And because when I look at you, I see strength that most people spend their whole lives searching for." Then he was gone, leaving Scarlett alone with a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and a feeling in her chest she didn't dare name. She didn't know that Nicholas sat in his car for 10 minutes after leaving, his hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand why a woman he'd just met had stirred something in him he'd thought long dead. She didn't know that he'd already made calls to ensure Penelope Wright would find every door in the city closed to her. And she didn't know that the next morning, when she nervously took Lily to see Dr. Morrison, she'd find not just a physician waiting, but a man who'd already paid for every test, every treatment, every follow-up visit her daughter might ever need. But she'd find out soon enough. Dr. Morrison's office was nothing like the overcrowded clinic where Scarlett usually took Lily. Here there were toys in the waiting room, warm colors on the walls, and a receptionist who smiled like she meant it. "Scarlett Hayes?" The receptionist checked her list. "Yes, Mr. Bennett called ahead. Come right through." Lily's small hand tightened in hers. "Mummy, the doctor won't give me shots, will he?" "Maybe just one tiny one, baby. But he's going to help make that cough go away." Dr. Morrison was a kind-faced man in his 50s who spoke to Lily directly. not over her head, explaining everything before he did it. The examination was thorough, more thorough than any doctor had ever been with her daughter. After he pulled Scarlett aside, while Lily played with the office's toy medical kit. She has bronchitis, which we can treat effectively. I'm prescribing antibiotics and an inhaler. But Mrs. Hayes, Miss, Scarlett corrected automatically. Miss Hayes, your daughter is also underweight and showing signs of chronic stress. I want to see her back in 2 weeks, and I'd like to start her on some supplements. His expression was gentle but firm. And I need to ask, are you getting enough to eat? Scarlett's face heated. I'm fine. Lily always eats first. That's what I thought. He handed her several prescriptions and a folder thick with information. Nicholas has ensured that all of this is covered. That includes nutritionist consultations and whatever else your family needs. And before you argue, his eyes twinkled, he made it very clear that you would try to refuse, and that I was to tell you that your daughter's health is non-negotiable. Tears burned Scarlett's eyes. I don't understand why he's doing this. I've known Nicholas Bennett for 15 years. He's a complicated man who's built a complicated empire. Dr. Morrison's expression grew serious, but I've also seen him move heaven and earth for people he believes deserve better. Whatever his reasons, I can promise you they're genuine. Scarlett left with medications, appointment cards, and more questions than answers. The pharmacy bill that she'd been dreading? Already paid. The follow-up visits? Scheduled and covered. She tried to call the number on Nicholas's business card 3 times that day, but each time her courage failed. What would she even say? The answer came 2 days later, when she arrived at the Bellacour for her shift. Her supervisor pulled her aside immediately. Mr. Bennett wants to see you in his office now. Fear shot through her. Did I do something wrong? No, honey, just go. Top floor, executive suite. The elevator ride felt like flying. Scarlett had never been above the main restaurant levels. The executive floor was all dark wood, expensive art, and floor-to-ceiling windows with views that made her dizzy. A secretary, polished, professional, and surprisingly warm, led her to double doors. He's expecting you. Nicholas's office was enormous and intimidating. He stood by the windows, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. When he saw her, he concluded the call immediately. Scarlett, thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair. Please, sit. She perched on the edge of a leather chair worth more than everything she owned. Mr. Bennett, I came to thank you for Lily. The doctor said, how is she? Better. The medication is already helping. Scarlett's hands twisted in her lap. But I can't accept all this, the bills, the appointments, it's too much. I'll pay you back, I just need time to… No, she blinked. No, you're not paying me back. Nicholas moved to sit across from her, close enough that she could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the tiny scar above his left eyebrow. Consider it handled. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's decency. His voice gentled. Scarlett, you work 3 jobs to support your daughter. You ride the bus 90 minutes each day because you can't afford a car. You skip meals so she can eat. That's not failure, that's heroism. And heroes deserve support, not more struggle. The tears came then, despite her best efforts. She tried to hide them, mortified to be crying in front of him, but suddenly Nicholas was there, kneeling beside her chair, offering a handkerchief that probably cost more than her week's salary. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm not. You're tired. You're overwhelmed. And you're trying to be strong every second of every day. His hand covered hers, warm and solid. You don't have to be strong right now, Scarlett. Not here. She looked at him through tears, this powerful, dangerous man who held her hand like she was something precious instead of something broken. Why are you being so kind to me? Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. My mother cleaned houses, 3 jobs just like you. She worked until her hands bled to keep food on our table. And when she got sick, no one helped. No one cared that she couldn't afford the medicine that might have saved her life. His jaw clenched. I was 16 when I lost her. Too young to help, too powerless to change anything. Scarlett's heart broke for the boy he'd been, seeing echoes of Lily's fear in his story. So when I see someone fighting the same battle, working themselves to exhaustion for a child they love, he met her eyes. I help, because no one helped her. And maybe in some small way, it balances the scales. I'm so sorry, Scarlett whispered. Don't be sorry, just let me help. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and Scarlett felt the touch all the way to her soul. "And there's something else. I'd like to offer you a different position. My personal assistant just gave notice. She's moving to Seattle with her husband. The job pays 3 times what you make now, with full benefits starting immediately." Scarlett's breath caught. "I don't have experience with—" "You're organized, professional, and hard-working. Everything else can be taught." He smiled slightly. "Plus, I've seen you manage a dinner service alone that should have required 3 people. If you can handle that chaos, you can handle my schedule." "Why?" The question was barely a whisper. Nicholas's expression shifted to something she couldn't quite read. Intensity, yes, but also something vulnerable. "Because I want to see you again. Because every time I've tried to focus on work the past 3 days, I've thought about you instead. Because when you walked into that prep area looking exhausted and still somehow resilient, something in me recognized something in you." Scarlett's heart pounded. "Mr. Bennett." "Nicholas, please." "Nicholas." She breathed his name and watched his eyes darken. "I have a daughter, complicated life. I can't afford complications." "Then we'll keep it simple." But the way he looked at her was anything but simple. "Say yes to the job. Let me help you build something stable for Lily. Everything else—" He stood, putting careful distance between them. "We'll figure out as we go." Scarlett knew this was dangerous. Knew that men like Nicholas Bennett didn't offer jobs to women like her without expectations. Knew that the electricity between them was real and terrifying and could destroy her if she wasn't careful. But she also knew that Lily needed medicine, that their apartment was freezing, that she was so tired her bones ached. "Yes," she whispered. Nicholas's smile was like sunrise. "Good. You start Monday, 9 o'clock. Wear whatever you're comfortable in. We'll handle professional wardrobe later." He returned to his desk, pulling out paperwork. "And Scarlett, your first task as my assistant will be accompanying me to a charity gala next week. It's a major fundraiser, and I need someone who understands what it's like to struggle to help me evaluate which organizations actually make a difference." "A gala?" Panic flared. "I don't have—" "Already handled. My stylist will reach out tomorrow." He glanced up, and his expression softened at her obvious distress. "Breathe, Scarlett. It's just an event. You've survived much worse than a room full of rich people trying to feel important." She laughed despite herself, surprised that he could make her feel lighter even in the middle of her panic. As she left his office, contract in hand and mind reeling, Scarlett didn't see Nicholas watching her go with an expression that would have terrified his enemies. Possession, protection, and something dangerously close to obsession. She didn't know that he'd already run a background check, not to find dirt, but to understand what threats might exist in her life. She didn't know that he'd identified Lily's father, a man who'd abandoned them, and had quietly ensured that if he ever tried to return, he'd find nothing but obstacles. And she definitely didn't know that Penelope Wright had just discovered every country club, every restaurant, every social circle she'd once commanded, had suddenly, mysteriously, closed their doors to her. But Scarlett would find out soon, because in 2 weeks, at a charity gala filled with New York's elite, Penelope would make one final devastating mistake, and this time, Nicholas Bennett's reaction would be nuclear. The next 2 weeks passed like a fever dream. Scarlett's new position as Nicholas's personal assistant was everything he'd promised, demanding but manageable, professional but warm. She learned his schedule, his preferences, the way he liked his coffee, black, 2 sugars, despite insisting he took it straight. She also learned that he was nothing like the cold businessman she'd expected. He remembered the names of janitors and CEOs with equal importance. He donated anonymously to causes that mattered. And every evening, without fail, he asked about Lily. "How's she feeling today? Did the new inhaler help? Send me photos sometime. I'd like to see that smile you're always describing." It was dangerous how easily he'd integrated himself into their lives. More dangerous still was how much Scarlett had started to look forward to their morning meetings, the brush of his hand when he passed her documents, the way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the room. "Doctor." Morrison's follow-up confirmed what Scarlett already knew. Lily was thriving. Color in her cheeks, energy returning, no more waking up to her daughter's coughing fits at 3 a.m. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Dr. Morrison said with a knowing smile. What Scarlett was doing was working one job instead of 3, eating regular meals, living in a heated apartment because Nicholas had quietly arranged for her building's heating system to be repaired at no cost to tenants. She was also falling, slowly, terrifyingly, for a man she had no business wanting. The charity gala arrived like a storm on the horizon. Nicholas's stylist transformed Scarlett's tiny apartment into a boutique, bringing dresses that cost more than her old car. "Mr. Bennett said midnight blue," the stylist announced, pulling out a gown that made Scarlett's breath catch. "He said it would match your eyes." And he was right. The dress fit like it had been made for her body, because it had. Scarlett stared at her reflection. Elegant, sophisticated, unrecognizable as the exhausted server who'd polished wine glasses 3 weeks ago. "You look like a princess." Lily clapped from her position on the couch, surrounded by her new books and toys, gifts from Nicholas that appeared regularly despite Scarlett's protests. "Just for one night, baby." Scarlett knelt carefully in the expensive dress. "Miss Janet is going to stay with you, and Mommy will be back before bedtime tomorrow." "Is Mr. Nicholas taking you to the ball?" "It's not a ball, sweetie, it's work. He thinks you're pretty." Lily's 4-year-old wisdom was devastating. "He looks at you like Prince Charming looks at Cinderella in the movie." Before Scarlett could respond, the doorbell rang. Nicholas stood in her hallway and she forgot how to breathe. He wore a tuxedo that should have been illegal, his dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw freshly shaved. But it was his expression when he saw her that made her knees weak, stunned, hungry, reverent. "Scarlett," her name was a prayer, "you're breathtaking. You clean up pretty nice yourself." She tried for humor to cover her nerves. "Mr. Nicholas," Lily bounded over, "you're really taking Mommy to the ball." He knelt, bringing himself to Lily's eye level with the ease of someone comfortable with children. "I am, and I promise to take very good care of her." "Will there be dancing?" "Probably. You have to dance with Mommy then. That's what princes do." Nicholas's eyes met Scarlett's over Lily's head, and something passed between them, acknowledgement of the impossibility, the danger, the want. "Then I'll make sure to ask her, if she says yes." The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, and Scarlett felt like she'd stepped into another world. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, designer gowns worth more than houses. Nicholas kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through crowds, introducing her not as his assistant but simply as Scarlett Hayes, the smartest person in my company. She met CEOs, philanthropists, politicians. Nicholas stayed close, reading her discomfort instantly and extracting them from conversations that made her uncomfortable. "You didn't tell me you were this protective," she murmured during a quiet moment. "You didn't tell me you could make that dress look like it was designed specifically to destroy my self-control," he countered, his voice rough. Heat flooded her cheeks. "Nicholas." "There you are, darling." A familiar voice cut through the crowd like a knife. Penelope Wright materialized before them in a red dress and a malicious smile. 2 weeks of social exile had sharpened her cruelty. "I've been looking everywhere for you, Nicholas. We need to discuss the Metropolitan Board meeting." Her eyes landed on Scarlett, and her expression curdled. "Oh, you brought the help. How progressive of you." Nicholas's entire body went rigid. "Penelope, you need to leave. This is a public event, darling. I have just as much right to be here as your little charity case." "Her name," Nicholas said, his voice dropping to a lethal quiet that made nearby conversations falter, "is Scarlett Hayes. And you will address her with respect or you won't address her at all." Penelope laughed high and harsh. "Respect? For her? Nicholas, really? Just because you've got some savior complex about the working class doesn't mean the rest of us have to pretend." "Pretend what?" He took a step forward, and Penelope actually backed up. "Pretend that she's not worth 10 of you? Pretend that she doesn't work harder in one day than you have in your entire life? Pretend that I don't see exactly what you are, small, cruel, and desperate to make others feel inferior because you're terrified of your own inadequacy?" The entire ballroom had gone silent. Phones appeared, discreet but present. This would be recorded, shared, everywhere. "You can't speak to me like—" "I just did." Nicholas's voice carried through the space like judgment. "And since you've made it clear you can't behave with basic human decency, let me make something else clear. Scarlett Hayes has more grace, more strength, and more genuine class in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She's brilliant, hard-working, and kind. Everything you pretend to be but will never actually achieve." Penelope's face turned scarlet. "This is absurd. All this over some maid who Who saved my life? The words dropped like bombs. Scarlett's head snapped toward Nicholas, shock written across her face. They'd never discussed anything like that. What was he doing? But Nicholas's eyes held hers, and she saw the truth. He wasn't lying. Maybe not literally, but emotionally, fundamentally. He meant every word. She reminded me, he continued, his voice softening despite the crowd. What matters? What's real? And if you can't see that, if you can't recognize that the measure of a person has nothing to do with their bank account and everything to do with their character, then you're not welcome in any space I control. He turned to Scarlett, his hand finding hers. Dance with me. Nicholas, everyone's watching. Let them watch. He pulled her onto the dance floor as a waltz began, his arms sliding around her waist, holding her close. I'm sorry. I know I said we'd keep things professional, but I won't let anyone speak to you like that again. Scarlett's head spun. They were dancing in front of hundreds of people. Cameras were recording. Tomorrow, this would be everywhere. You just destroyed her socially. I know. You called me brilliant in front of the entire city elite. You are brilliant. Nicholas! She looked up at him, seeing the absolute certainty in his dark eyes. What are we doing? His hand tightened on her waist. I don't know, but I know I can't stay away from you. I know that when I wake up, you're my first thought. I know that Lily's laugh has become my favorite sound, even though I've only heard it through your phone. I know that... I'm terrified, Scarlett interrupted, her voice breaking. I'm terrified of how much I want this, want you, because people like you don't end up with people like me. Not really, not in ways that last. Then let me prove you wrong. He pulled her closer, their bodies moving in perfect sync. Let me show you that what I feel isn't about your background or my position. It's about you, your strength, your heart. The way you make me believe in something better than the darkness I've built my empire in. I have a daughter, she whispered. Baggage. Complications. You have a beautiful child who deserves a father figure who will protect her the way I'd die to protect you. His jaw clenched. Scarlett, I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you, but with you I want to be better. For you and for Lily, I'd burn down everything I've built and start over. The song ended. The ballroom erupted in whispers and stares. Somewhere, Penelope Wright was leaving in tears and fury, and Scarlett Hayes made a choice that would change everything. She kissed him. Right there, in front of everyone, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. It was soft, brief, terrifying, and perfect. When she pulled back, Nicholas's eyes were dark with promise and possession. You just changed everything, he murmured against her lips. I know, Scarlett breathed. I'm still terrified. Good. So am I. He smiled, and it was beautiful and dangerous. Come on, let's get out of here. I want to meet Lily properly, and I want to start showing you what forever looks like. They left the gala hand in hand, phones tracking their exit, society pages already writing headlines. Penelope Wright's reign officially ended, and neither of them saw the man in the shadows, watching with calculating eyes. A man who knew exactly who Nicholas Bennett was, who Scarlett Hayes had become to him, and how to use that weakness to destroy them both. But that threat was still forming, still distant. For now there was only Nicholas helping Scarlett into his car, his hand lingering on hers. There was only the drive back to her apartment, filled with comfortable silence and stolen glances. There was only Lily's delighted squeal when they walked in together, and Nicholas's gentle laughter as the 4-year-old insisted he read her a bedtime story. Hannah Scarlett watched this powerful, dangerous man sitting on her daughter's bed, reading about princess warriors with perfect dramatic flair while Lily giggled. She felt something click into place. Fear, yes, but also hope, also possibility, also love. The threat came 3 days later in the form of a manila envelope delivered to Nicholas's office. Scarlett was reviewing his calendar when his entire body went rigid, his face draining of color as he read. Nicholas? She stood immediately. What's wrong? He looked up and she saw something she'd never seen before. Fear. Raw, visceral fear. Photos. Of you and Lily, outside her preschool, at the grocery store. His voice was deadly calm in that way that meant he was barely controlling rage. And a message. Your weakness has been identified. Scarlett's blood turned to ice. Who? Konstantin Volkov, a rival who's been trying to take over my territory for years. Nicholas stood, already pulling out his phone. He's threatening you to get to me. The world tilted. This was real. The danger she'd known existed theoretically was now photographing her daughter. We need to call the police. The police can't touch him. But I can. Nicholas moved to her, his hands framing her face. Listen to me. I'm going to protect you both. I have men already moving into position around your building, around Lily's school. But Scarlett, his jaw clenched, you and Lily need to come stay at my estate. It's the only place I can guarantee your safety. We can't just move into your house. Yes, you can. You will. His eyes blazed. Because if something happens to either of you because of me, I won't survive it. Do you understand? I need you safe. I need her safe. Please, Scarlett, trust me. She saw it then. The truth she'd been dancing around. Nicholas Bennett wasn't falling for her. He'd already fallen. Completely. Irrevocably. Just like she had. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The move happened within hours. Nicholas's security team, professional, efficient, kind to Lily, transported them to an estate that made the word mansion seem inadequate. 20 acres, state-of-the-art security, and enough rooms that Scarlett got lost twice. This is the princess suite, Nicholas told Lily, opening doors to a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. I had it prepared for you. But if you don't like pink, we can change everything. It's perfect. Lily's eyes were enormous. Mommy, look, there's a slide from the bed. Scarlett's throat tightened, watching Nicholas kneel beside her daughter, showing her each feature of the room with patience and care. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't manipulation. This was a man genuinely trying to make a scared little girl feel safe. Your room is next door, he said quietly to Scarlett later. But I'm down the hall if you need anything, and Scarlett, he caught her hand. I know this is overwhelming, I know it's fast, but I meant what I said at the gala. I'm all in. Whatever happens, wherever this goes, I'm yours. Both of you. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep in her princess bed, Scarlett found Nicholas in his office, security feeds on multiple screens, phone pressed to his ear speaking rapid Italian. He ended the call when he saw her. Can't sleep, can you? She moved closer, seeing the exhaustion in his face. When's the last time you slept? I'll sleep when you're safe. His hand found hers, pulling her down to sit beside him. I've got men tracking Volkov's movements. He can't touch you here. That's not what I'm worried about. Scarlett turned his face to hers. Nicholas, you can't protect us every second. You can't stop living your life. Watch me. His intensity stole her breath. Scarlett, do you know what you've become to me? You're not just someone I care about. You're the reason I get up in the morning. You and Lily. You're what I think about when I make decisions, when I negotiate deals, when I decide what kind of man I want to be. You've changed everything. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of Volkov, of this, of how much I feel for you. Because if something happens, nothing will happen. He kissed her palm, soft and reverent. I promise you, Scarlett Hayes, I will spend every day of my life making sure you and your daughter are safe, happy, and loved beyond measure. Love? The word caught in her throat. Love. He said it firmly, surely. I'm in love with you. Have been since I saw you polishing crystal with exhausted hands and a spine of steel, and I'm completely gone for that little girl down the hall who asked me if dragons are real, and when I said no, told me I clearly wasn't looking hard enough. Scarlett laughed through tears. That sounds like her. She's perfect, you're perfect. Nicholas pulled her into his lap, holding her like she was precious. And I know I'm not the safe choice. I know my world is dangerous, but I swear to you, I will do everything in my power to give you both the life you deserve. I love you too, Scarlett whispered against his neck. I'm terrified, but I love you. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until security alerts started blinking on the screens. Nicholas tensed immediately. What? Breach attempt, west perimeter. He was already moving, phone in hand. Stay here. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me. Nicholas. But he was gone, and Scarlett was left with pounding heart and paralyzing fear. She checked on Lily, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger circling, then returned to pace Nicholas's office. 20 minutes felt like hours. When the door finally opened, Nicholas stood there, suit torn, knuckles bleeding, but alive. Whole. Scarlett crashed into him, checking for injuries, hands shaking. Are you hurt? What happened? Volkov's men. We stopped them. His arms came around her, holding tight. It's over, Scarlett. We have Volkov in custody. He's facing charges that will keep him locked up for life. The FBI's been building a case. I just gave them the final piece they needed." "It's really over?" "It's really over." He tipped her face up and she saw the truth in his eyes. "You're safe. Lily's safe. And now," his smile was tentative, hopeful, "now we get to figure out what normal looks like. If you still want that, with me." Scarlett kissed him, fierce, claiming, sure. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. "I want everything. With you. Always." The next morning, Lily woke to find Nicholas making pancakes in the massive kitchen, her mother laughing beside him, and declared that this was exactly like a fairy tale, but better because there's chocolate chips. And Scarlett, watching Nicholas flip pancakes while discussing dragon habitats with complete seriousness with her 4-year-old, felt the weight she'd been carrying for years finally lift. This was real. This was theirs. And it was just the beginning. 3 years later, Scarlett stood in the garden of their home. No longer Nicholas's estate, but theirs, transformed by her touches into something warm and welcoming, watching Lily chase butterflies with her little brother. "She's gotten faster," Nicholas said, sliding his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "He's determined to catch her." Scarlett leaned back into his warmth, just like his father, stubborn and convinced he can do anything. "Wonder where he learned that?" Nicholas's hand moved to her stomach, where a new life was just beginning to make itself known. "How are you feeling?" "Exhausted, happy, still surprised that this is my life." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd defended her honor in front of the city's elite, who'd dismantled threats to keep her safe, who read bedtime stories with dramatic flair and attended every school play like it was opening night on Broadway. "Surprised?" He smiled, that beautiful expression that was hers alone. "Didn't I promise you forever?" "You did. I just didn't believe forever could feel this perfect." "Perfect?" Nicholas laughed. "Scarlett, you're looking at a man who burned his toast this morning, who got finger paint on a suit that cost more than most cars, and who still has nightmares about losing you. And I'm looking at the man who saved my daughter's life, who gave me a career I love, who built me a library because I mentioned once that I wished I had time to read." Her voice softened. "The man who sees me, really sees me, every single day, and makes me believe I'm enough exactly as I am. You've always been enough." He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. "You just needed someone to show you what the rest of us already saw." A squeal interrupted them as Lily ran over, arms outstretched. "Daddy, come help me teach Marcus about butterflies. He keeps trying to catch them." "That's because he's 2, Principessa," Nicholas said, scooping her up with ease. "But let's go teach him about gentle observation instead." Scarlett watched him jog toward their son, Lily giggling on his shoulders, and felt her heart swell so full she thought it might burst. The woman who'd once polished crystal with trembling hands now stood in Italian gardens, watching her family play, with a doctorate in non-profit management funded by a man who believed in her before she believed in herself. The server who'd endured cruelty with quiet dignity now ran the Bennett Foundation, directing millions toward causes that helped women like she'd been, single mothers fighting impossible odds. And Penelope Wright. Last Scarlett heard, she was living quietly in Connecticut, far from the social circles she'd once commanded, her influence and cruelty nothing but distant memory. Justice, Scarlett had learned, wasn't always obvious, but it was always present when good men chose to act. "Mommy," Lily called, "come see. Daddy says this butterfly is a monarch and they fly all the way to Mexico." Scarlett joined her family on the grass, Nicholas's hand finding hers immediately, their children between them, the future stretching out bright and certain. From the maid insulted by an arrogant woman to the wife of the most powerful man in the city, from survival to thriving, from invisible to cherished. It hadn't been a fairy tale. It had been better, real, messy, complicated, and absolutely perfect. And as the sun set over their garden, painting everything gold, Scarlett Hayes Bennett smiled and thought about that moment 3 years ago when Nicholas had defended her dignity in front of everyone who mattered. She'd found her voice that night, and she'd never stopped using it. This story has reached its end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories coming soon. Until next time.